Hello, so this week we're going to be putting together the different bits and bobs we've been working with this year. So we've been working with food most recently, and now we're going to be putting that together with something we've learned last year, which is describing someone, so hair and eyes, for example, so that we are able to describe a photo. So it's a really useful skill in languages. So in this context, it's going to be food. But as we progress, we're going to do a bit more description of photo with different contexts. So in this video, we'll be looking at how to do this describing, and then we're going to be working through a few examples. So as usual, the tip that I give you is to have your vocab sheet available if you want to take some notes as you watch, or maybe just some paper and then you can take some notes. And then also, if I'm asking a question, I would really recommend you pause. Try to answer it yourself first and then on pause so you can listen to the answer. So let's begin for describing a photo in the context of food. So firstly, the vocab sheet you'll want to have is this one here for this unit. And here are the bits that we're going to be using in particular. So firstly, the box on the top left, necessary verbs, and more specifically, here where we've got he, she, and we eat, and especially he and she eat, and he and she drink. We're also going to be using the box here, the little words, and more specifically where we have one of something, so I eat a pie, for example, or when we want to say some of something that you eat or drink. You will also want to have this with you. We won't do that many examples, but when you do the exercises for this week, you're going to be wanting this section here for the different foods. And then finally, this is not mandatory, but if you want to add some extra detail in your text, because I know some of you really like to push yourselves, you could be adding adjectives to describe the food that you're seeing on the photo. So let's begin. We're going to be dividing this into two parts. So firstly, we're going to look at how to describe the photo when we're talking about the person. And then once we've described the person, we're going to talk about what he or she is eating or drinking. Firstly, when we're describing photos, we're always going to be starting with this little sentence starter. Sur la photo, il y a. So you recognize the word photo here. You recognize the word la, which means the. And we also know il y a, which means there is. Sur la photo, on the photo, there is. And then we're mainly going to be working with these four words here. So four different types of people you would see. We have un garçon, un homme, une fille, une femme. So I've put those two in the same color, those two in the same color. So have a think, and perhaps some like this one maybe, or this one maybe, might remind you of words in English. So if you want to pause and have a think what they might mean, I'll give you a hint. So these are pictures that might give you a hint. You can also pause now and try and decide what they would mean. So we have got un garçon, which is a boy. Un garçon. We have got un homme, which means a man. Un homme. We have got une fille, which means a girl, and it's the same sound as famille, fille, une fille, a girl. And finally, une femme, which means a woman. So these are the main four we'll be working with, so you can come up with your own tips to remember which is which. So for example, the two female ones start with an F for female, feminine, and then the two adult ones here have two M's, so you could think maybe the adult people are mature, so they'd have the letter M in the word. So these are little tips to remember. Some of you might like to challenge yourself. I won't really show you examples of this, but if you want to practice talking about more than one person, you could say that there is a family, for example. Sur la photo, il y a une famille, if you want to do this. Obviously, I'd like to point out that all the pictures I've chosen are quite stereotypical. I realize not all girls wear dresses, etc., but I just wanted something that was very obvious. So this is the first part of what we want to be talking about when we're describing a photo. Sur la photo, il y a. On the photo, there is. And then if it's a boy, girl, man, or woman, or maybe a family. We also have learned more things to describe people in year 7 when we're talking about les yeux and les cheveux. Have a think what those mean. Les yeux is the eyes. Les cheveux is the hair. And then we've got different colors. So effectively, when we're describing someone, we can do it in 2 steps. We would have sur la photo il y a, on the photo there is, and then who is there. So garçon, homme, fille, femme, or famille. And the second step would be describing that person with the hair and the eyes. So if we are talking about a boy or a man, so that's why I chose a color blue, we're going to need to pick il. Why is that? Il means he. He has eyes, blue, for example. If we're describing a woman or a girl, une fille or une femme, we're going to be using elle. What does elle mean? She. She has the eyes blue, she has the eyes green, etc. The little extra one here with une famille is a little bit harder because you need to use il with an S, which means they. So it's a little bit harder, but this is just if you want to push yourself. Most of you will just be sticking with these 4 here. Obviously, you can add a little bit to that description that we've already learned. I won't do too much detail about this in this video, but of course you know how to describe more about people, maybe their physique, maybe the length of their hair, etc. So all of this is on your year 7 vocab sheets. Let's have a look at one example describing a photo with just a person. So he's eating. We won't talk about eating just yet. So we've got a young man here. So I would say a man rather than a boy. So step number 1, sur la photo, il y a un homme. On the photo, there is a man. And then step number 2, we need to pick the correct one for the gender, il a, and I would say his eyes are black and his hair is black, just to make it a bit simpler. So, il a les yeux noirs et les cheveux noirs. Il a les yeux noirs et les cheveux noirs. So what I've highlighted in the different colors for the gender, and if I've underlined it, it's because you might want to change it because of the color. Obviously, if you did the step 2b, you might have said, il court, so his hair is short, il est grand, he is tall, that's fine. Let's do another example. So here's a different photo. Again, she's eating, but we'll talk about food afterwards. So step number 1, sur la photo il y a, I would say une fille, a girl. Sur la photo il y a une fille. Again, we're picking this one here, elle a les yeux, and I've written bleu, I think they're blue, et les cheveux blonds. So you're doing all steps 1 and 2. If you want to do 2b, you could add a little bit about the physique or the hair based on what you've got. So you could say her hair is mi-long, which is mid-length, elle est petite. Okay. You could even say elle est très petite. All of this is when you want to practice your French to show that you can use all these different words and to get more marks for anything that you're writing. Right, we've done the first bit, so describing a photo with the person. Now we're going to talk about the eating, what we've been practicing more recently. So this is the action. Eventually we're going to talk about other actions that you might be describing. Let's stick with eating now. And I've grouped the boy and the man, le garçon et l'homme, and the girl and the woman, la fille et la femme. And so the boy and the man will be using il mange and il boit. And then for the girl and for the woman, I'll be using elle mange and elle boit. Again, I'll put those little things here. Why am I using il mange, il boit, and elle mange and elle boit? I'm using il because il is he, and I'm using elle because elle is she for a girl and a woman. I've put those little pictures here to remind you that mange means to eat, so a burger or anything like this, and boire is for a beverage, so like tea, etc. So it means to drink. So a way to remember it is that boire starts with a B, like beverage. Then, of course, after we talk about eating and drinking, we have been working with recently with the foods, and we know that we need to write a little word between eat and whatever the food is. We can't say in French, he eats yogurt. We have to say either he eats one whole of something. It tends to be the case with fruits, for example. He eats one whole pear. Or some of something. That's what we've been focusing on lately. So if you say that something is one, so there's two ways of saying a in French. Have a think. So you can say un or une, and have a think as to when we would choose un or when we would choose une. We would use un for something that is masculine. We're going to use une for something that is feminine, and this is the food that we're talking about. When we're talking about some, have a think as how many ways of saying some there are in French. There are 4 ways, and these 4 ways are du, de la, des, or de l. They all mean some. Have a look at the colors. Why do you think we've got these colors here? You can pause. Du is a food that is masculine. De la is a food that is feminine. Des is a food that is plural. For example, fruits. He eats some fruits. And de l is a food that starts with a vowel. It's very common with drinks, for example. Il boit de l'eau. He drinks some water. So to recap, we've got our verb, either one of something or some, and then whatever the food is. So a reminder of where you're going to find some, in more detail how to use it. It is box number 7 in your vocab sheet, and I made 2 videos to help you explain this and do some examples. So if you need to rewatch them, if you're not quite sure, you have got the link and they're on my YouTube channel. If you want to add detail, again, this is the box of adjectives on your vocab sheet. You could say, he eats a apple delicious, or delicious apple. So you have some words in your list of adjectives. The other example I had, which was slightly harder, so I put a little star. So if you're describing more than one person, you would use they, and the verb is written differently. So just if you want to use this, that's great. Just make sure you use your vocab sheet, okay? But as I said, most of you will just be sticking with he and she, eat and drink. So let's have a look at some examples to finish. So I've kept the same photo, and we have got now our step 1, our step 2, to be, so adding maybe extra detail, and step 3, he eats or drink, she eats or drink. So we've got the same young lady as earlier. So step number 1, I would say, sur la photo, il y a une fille. Because we picked feminine here, we need to choose she. Elle a les yeux bleus et les cheveux blonds. And again, because I picked she, I need to pick the same color here. Elle, in this case, she's eating. Elle mange, and I think that would be bread. Elle mange. It's not the whole of a bread, it's some bread. So I need to look up bread in my vocab sheet so I can see what gender it is, and I can choose the correct word here. And I'm going to find that I need to use du pain. Elle mange du pain. Okay, so step 1. Step 2, to be if you want to add more detail about the description. And step 3. All of you need to be able to do 1, 2, and 3. It's essential. Okay. Right, last example. So same young man as earlier. He's eating a burger. Okay, so step number 1. So it's a man. So sur la photo, il y a un homme. Again, I'm sticking with the same color. Il a les yeux noirs et les cheveux, same, noirs. I could add more detail here if I wanted about the length, etc. And finally, step number 3, he, so il mange. I would say that's the whole burger. You could say some, but I think it makes sense to say whole. So il mange un hamburger. Okay, so your work this week will be to describe some photos like this with the 3 steps. Who it is, what they look like, what they're doing. There we go.